Hey guys, so today we're going to replace output flange seal on a 94.5 7.3 Powerstroke F-350 with the ZF5 manual transmission. So they put the ZF5 in a bunch of the Ford series from probably the mid 80s up until they came out with the Super Duty. This procedure should be the same for all the trucks. In my case, it's just a diesel. So for this job, you're really just going to need a couple basic tools. The only thing that might be kind of unique to this would be you need a T45 Torx socket or wrench or something, and then you need a 1 7/16 inch socket for the actual pinion flange nut. The seal, I think I got it just online. 225010 Timken seal. Should be able to find it just about anywhere. So actually what happened was I was driving and I went to the rest area and I came out and I noticed a big puddle of fluid under my truck. So I looked and it looked like it was coming from the transmission. So did a little bit of research online, found that this is a pretty common procedure. It actually, from what I've heard or what it sounds like, a lot of the nuts it's a lock nut, it just comes loose and comes off, and that causes a leak. So let's get under the truck, let's tear it apart, and let's figure it out. So we're under the truck here, and as you can see, there's a ton of transmission fluid all around. It's basically flinging out of this rear seal, and it's just going everywhere. Enough to where, like, if I pull over while I'm driving, you'll see transmission fluid dripping from this seal. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the drive shaft off. There's just 4 Torx bits, or Torx screws. It looks like they're T45. So we'll unscrew these 2 straps. I already broke them loose here, so it should be pretty easy. Make sure you keep your bolts. And from there, the drive shaft should want to just kind of fall right out. There's one strap. And there's the other. You can see it's just a little saddle that straps the U-joint in. Now, we should be able to push this back. It might be kind of tough. Oh, it doesn't want to go. Of course. Because the slip yoke is after this. Whoop. It appears as though I cannot get it off because the slip joint is after that. So I'm going to have to loosen that drive shaft support up to try and get it out. So I'll get some tools and I'll be back. So I'm going to loosen up this center support bearing right here. I'm just going to try and loosen it because I think there should be enough slop in it to let me push the drive shaft back to get that off by the yoke flange. It's a 5/8 on the bolt, but the nut seems like an 11/16. So that should be enough right there. Let's see. There we go, our drive shaft is out. I'll get some wire and strap that up. And the big thing is, if you look at that, that's why we have a leak. I was reading online and it looked like it was pretty known that sometimes the nut just falls off, and there it did. So I'll strap this drive shaft up and I'll take that yoke flange off, and then we'll come back and we'll pull the seal out. So as you can see, the nut is just completely off here. Like I said, I read about that. This is a lock nut. I'm not sure how hard it's gonna go on, but it should go on with some force. I mean, it sounds like it just kind of wears off, gets loose, comes loose, and then that is prone to leaking. So the good news is I don't have to struggle with getting that lock nut off. So now your yoke slides right off, and then we can get at that seal back there. So, knock the seal in. I'm probably gonna have to crush it somehow to get it out, like that. But they usually come out. So there's our seal. Doesn't look too bad, but it's probably got 400, 500,000 miles on it. So I think it's time to be replaced. All right, guys. So we're back. I got everything cleaned up. Make sure you clean your splines really well. I'll tell you why in a second. And then make sure you clean your seal bore out really well. So now, got my new seal here, and I'm gonna put a little bit of oil on the outside and just a little bit on the inside so that we can tap it in nicely. I've just got some ATF laying around. That's what I'm gonna use. It's not really super critical. It's just assembly lube. And you don't need much. You don't want to slather everything in oil so you got it dripping everywhere, because that's gonna make sealing that yoke flange tough. We'll get it started by hand. Tap it in a little bit. And then I like to use a large socket just because it's easy. It's what I have. But you know, if you've got basically any nice pipe that you can stick on there, it should work pretty well. And they don't go in hard, you know. See, I already got it going in square. The key is you got to make sure you tap them in square. This one's kind of tough because you don't have a shoulder to tap it into. Boy, looks pretty good. Touch more. So I'm happy with that. We've got our seal driven in. I'm gonna make sure it looks good with the yoke on it. That looks solid. You can tell our yoke isn't hitting the seal. It's hitting the spacer that's in the trans. So now, before we put our nut on, there's one critical step that I think most people miss. If you look at this, there's two actual possible leak paths, right? You've got your yoke flange on your seal, but you could also get oil coming through the yoke flange here. So I work in axle assembly, and when we do pinion flanges to yokes, we actually just put on pipe dope, we call it, right? So you could use RTV, but that's probably a little more like adhesive than what you need. And this will just kind of, you know, solidify a little bit, but it'll just give you a nice seal against that oil. This is just like regular home plumbing pipe dope, but it says 500 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's plenty. You don't want a ton. I mean, this stuff is notoriously messy. You really just want enough to seal the grooves of the yoke flange. So I've just got it in all my grooves there. Let me wipe the end off here. And now, when you put that on, again, you can see that just kind of oozing out in the middle there. And that's going to give us a nice seal against that oil coming out there. So now I've got a brand new nut. That's one of the other keys to this. You can kind of see how the threads are mangled, it looks like. That's a lock nut. This is a use once kind of nut. I don't know if it was taken off before, and someone tried to use the old nut, and that's why it fell off or whatever. But this is a one-time use. Put it on, it'll lock. If you take it off and try and use it again, it'll probably fall off. So now, whoop, wrong socket. Now we just have to torque this down to the spec, and we should be good to go. This nut is a 1 7/16. Oops. So I'm gonna get it pretty snug, but I don't want to strip it. It's not the biggest threads. Now I've got a massive ratchet here, but I think that's pretty good. So we should be good to go. Now all I've got to do is put the drive shaft on in the reverse order. Make sure I torque those down, and we should be set. I had to put the trans in neutral. I'm gonna line the yoke back up. So now I'm gonna have to go put it in gear so I can snug these down. But first, if you remember, I gotta tighten my carrier bearing back up. Now that the drive shaft is back in place, so I'm gonna go in the truck, put it in gear, tighten down these 4 bolts. I'm going to check that my transmission is full. Fill plug is right here, so I'll make sure it's full because obviously it's been leaking fluid. And then I think we should be good to go. I'll take it for a little ride, check it out. You know, make sure it's not dumping fluid. Probably the one critical thing is make sure you check these bolts after a little while. They'll loosen up and they're pretty critical. You don't want it to let go while you're driving down the highway. The other thing is, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, really the key on this job is, you know, seals are a little tricky to install, but I'm sure you can probably find some good videos, or most people have replaced a few seals before. But the thing a lot of people miss with the yoke flange is just make sure you put the pipe dope on it, because that's just a leak path that's unaccounted for if you don't put any pipe dope on it. But if you're gonna put pipe dope on it or RTV, make sure you really clean it up good. A lot of people use brake clean or something like that. Just get the splines nice and clean, and you should be good to go. Should have no leaks. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll probably have a lot more videos to show as I go through this truck. If you guys want to see anything, if you have any questions, make sure you leave any questions in the comment, any video suggestions, things like that. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.